Hello and welcome back. This is Paolo, your host, and this is Conversations in Artificial Intelligence. Today, we will go in the realm of marketing technology, sales technology, but also marketing and sales strategies to grow your AI startup or to popularize your AI solutions inside your company or to sell your AI product if you work in a large company. With us today, we have Malay Upadhyay from SalesChoice, a growth stage company that is using AI to facilitate the sales process. Malay, how are you today?
I'm doing fantastic, Paolo. So good to be here. How are you?
I am very good, and thank you for being here. Let's introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, my best friend in school will likely kill me if I introduce myself as a marketer because he would not want to hear my work-related information, but that is what I am. And from a professional front, I am certified in machine learning with an experience across multiple continents and industries, growing growth stage startups and firms like SalesChoice, with a particular focus and emphasis on the marketing and sales through business development.
So SalesChoice is using AI to help in the sales process. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's a fascinating piece of software and fairly new as well. On the face of it, it's a predictive and prescriptive analytics software for B2B sales organizations. But what it does is bringing a lot of unique features by combining a whole host of deep machine learning algorithms that you would normally not see in a solution like this. At its core, its job is to help sales teams focus on the right opportunities in their pipeline by identifying which opportunities are more likely to close and which ones are less likely to close. It then also goes ahead and, most interestingly, explains why it thinks whatever it thinks, why it makes the predictions it is making, so that people can make contextual decisions. And that is really the key part, because what we bring into the market is explainable AI, and that is what sets us apart and actually won us, I think it was last year, a Digital Transformation Award for AI Disruption. So that's what SalesChoice does. And of course, it plugs it up with a whole host of strategic insights to basically take care of every single thing that a sales leader or a manager or a rep would like to engage in to do their work better.
How does this technology make sure that the salesperson is now helped by this technology better than in the past?
The answer is always in the data, right? Because when you're talking about AI, it all depends and boils down to what data is being filled in properly by the teams at regular intervals. How SalesChoice helps is it looks for historical patterns of what kind of data or information in the most significant fields on your data set led to an opportunity either being won or lost. And based on those significant fields that it identifies and the conditions under which the opportunity was won, it can tell you whether you're doing things right or wrong at this moment with your current opportunities. And that's how it can then not only make a prediction on which opportunities will close or not close, it can also coach you on what you can do to take corrective action and improve your odds of winning.
What if companies do not have enough data or enough data history per type of transaction?
The answer is quite straightforward. The data needs to be there, and how diligent a company is and how a better leadership is in driving adoption of either the CRM or any other tool that they're using, so that people are filling in the data properly. That said, there are solutions that can actually come in and help to improve that situation. For example, I mentioned early on that SalesChoice has a bunch of more strategically driven features that it plugs over and above what we have already discussed. One of them, and it does, is it gives you a very neat real-time snapshot of how complete the data is for every single field on the data set for every single user. So Monday morning, if I come to office and I'm looking at that particular view, I can immediately tell that John has filled in his data perfectly well in 9 out of 10 fields, but he's missing data in that 10th one. And then I can coach John personally to make sure he goes in and fills in that information. And it also tracks any anomaly or variation in the nature of data that's entered. All said and done, one of our clients, CMO at Versature, actually managed to increase their Salesforce adoption to, believe it or not, 99% simply by using that view. And that's how we are addressing that problem, because it's a problem we face all the time with clients. And it's a good problem to have, because if you're not ready for AI, but start looking at the data and making preparations now, within 1 year, you will be ready. It just takes diligence, but the rewards are well worth it.
So let's look then at the other, aspect of what you were discussing as value proposition of SalesChoice, which is basically the explainability. So how is it relevant in the sales pipeline, and why is it valued by, your prospective customers?
Absolutely. So it's relevant from two perspectives. One is from an ethical standpoint. And the second one is from, quite simply, the accuracy of the data interpretation and the decision making, or the effectiveness. So let me just give you an example to make a case in point. At Mount Sinai Hospital, when they initially installed an AI tool called Deep Patient, it was brought in to be able to predict patients that were prone to succumb to schizophrenia. Now, that's something that's notoriously difficult to estimate initially. And doctors always try to look for signs, but it's very difficult. Deep Patient significantly improved the rate at which it could accurately estimate which patients had the risk of developing schizophrenia eventually. But here's what was the problem. The doctors did not know why Deep Patient thought whatever it thought. So what do you do as a doctor in this case? Do you go ahead and start taking presumptive action and proactively try and treat patient for schizophrenia, even though he or she may or may not develop it? Do you just blindly trust the patient? That may not be the best solution always. Likewise, when in our case, SalesChoice, for example, goes and explains and makes a prediction that, hey, your opportunity at XYZ company is gonna close within this quarter, or worse, not gonna close in this quarter, you have to be able to understand why the machine thinks that the case, because machine is only looking at the data you have entered. It has not taken into account contextual factors. For example, the opportunity has been lying in your pipe for over a year, and so the machine thinks it's unlikely to close. Well, maybe the opportunity has been there for several qualitative reasons that you have not entered into the system. So it becomes very important for any AI user to always look for solutions that explain why they think whatever they think, so that you as a user, as a person, don't make the mistake. And that is what incidentally brings the human factor into the equation, and why humans are just as important as AI if you want to get an achievable result.
In this framework, where do you think is the optimal situation where this technology provides the best value?
There are industries where AI is working better than in other industries. And that's because of the nature of the industry and the way the work is done over there. It boils down to how well you can frame the problem around machine learning. Not every solution requires machine learning. And even if a solution requires machine learning, the outcome has to be hypothesized well, and it has to be measurable.
Are this type of technology meant to replace the sales force?
Personally, I wouldn't be in the industry if I had found out that it's going to replace all the jobs and make people unemployed. No, that's not the case. What I found is something different. Realistically, first of all, job displacements and disruptions are always happening. There was a time when all of us were farmers, and if someone had come and told us that they're going to automate half of the farming, half the people would have gotten a heart attack at that time, and they likely did. What it boils down to is the fact that as times change and technologies improve, the nature of our jobs evolve, and we start doing many things that we weren't doing or were not needed initially. With regards to SalesChoice, for example, if you talk about whether it's going to replace the sales professional, it's not going to happen from what I see, because no matter how much you automate it, sales is one thing where even if you have automated emails being sent and chatbots talking to people, there are customized personal answers and conditional questions that have to be answered and taken care of. And that will always require the salesperson to come into the picture at some point. What it helps with is if one salesperson could only reach out to, let's say, 50 accounts earlier, with AI, they can now reach out to 1,000 accounts, so that the AI does the hard hitting work and it then brings things down to certain priority accounts, which the sales professional can then focus on.
If we extend your reasoning, we might think that the total number of sales jobs will decrease.
Our minds work on a very logical level. So when we think, we think in blocks. And the way we normally process it is there are 100 salespeople. Now AI has come, it's doing the job of, let's say, 50 of them. So those 50 are now useless and we are left with only 50 doing the kind of job they were already doing anyway. That's not how it works. The way technology evolves, and it has evolved over the last 200 years, 250 years, things are more fluid. The salespeople don't get replaced as much as evolve into newer or different roles. Today, we don't have roles belonging to typewriters, for example. We don't have people who do the typing for you, because all of us can do the typing ourselves. That doesn't mean the typewriters, they are now unemployed and are jobless. They have same thing with half the things involved in the legal process. Those things evolve, and that's why it's difficult to make a case, just because the way jobs are going to evolve is not something we can predict from the current standpoint of time. Our job is to believe in a dystopian world risk so that we can take care not to let that happen. But job evolution always take place and have taken place. A classic example is of Diana West in a report that I read from one of the Canadian Dairy Farmer Association. She said that when she employed AI robots to milk the cows, technically every single person who was milking the cow should have lost their job. But instead, Diana managed to actually increase her revenue and productivity more while keeping everyone employed, because the robots needed to be taken care of. Plus the robots, even if they can milk the cows, they don't know things like when a cow is in heat and needs to be inseminated. You do need people to come and do that. People just moved on from doing one kind of work to a more evolved kind of work. And that's how normally progression takes place.
What I want to do now is really look at the marketing aspects here. And so you have lots of competition on one end, and you have a high barrier to entry on the other hand. How do you go to market, and how do you make the sales?
Wonderful question. That is always the case with any new technology. That's why there's the technology adoption curve where you get overly excited, then you have a sudden correction in your estimates, and then things become more normal. You always have the exploratory guys who are willing to just go out there and try the new stuff, and the lagging or the risk-averse people who want to wait and watch. Normally, the way to go to market with this, it's something that you will hear in other places as well. AI should not be the focus of the conversation. The problem that you're trying to solve should be the focus of the conversation. And that's what we try and focus on as we go to market. We try to look at the use cases that AI can solve, the problems that it can solve, what problems, challenges, or gaps the person is having, and can it be solved using AI in the first place, as I mentioned earlier. Or maybe you just need basic data science or statistical solutions, and machine learning doesn't even need to come into the picture. But that is how you need to approach this, because the conversation has to revolve around pain points, around challenges, around objectives. It doesn't have to revolve around what technology we are using to achieve those objectives.
Can you give us some examples of how you go about selling your solution, and about some of the insights that you have learned?
First of all, there are over 6,000 solutions in marketing and sales. It's a list that I keep handy, but mind boggles me every single time. So the trick is, how do you choose which ones to go for? As much as me as a marketer would not like to corroborate this, the reality is, first of all, we should not try and engage only with higher brands that are out there in the market. The trick to a perfect stack is to be able to find solutions, even if they're lesser known or do half the things, that fit in perfectly. And not just with each other, like a jigsaw puzzle, but also with your best practices that come into the picture. With Sales Choice, we make it clear, first of all, that we come into the picture only after opportunities are created. But we try to have those qualifying discussions with our customers to understand, again, as I mentioned, what challenges they're really facing, what are their annual targets that they're trying to make. And that really starts off the conversation, because gradually it also starts to boil down to, are they ready with regards to data, as we discussed previously. And those are all the nets that we have built into the software to be able to help them. Now, in terms of going to market, we have a rather comprehensive template. It's something that I have developed over several years now across multiple industries, and always customize it to organizations. It takes us through step by step, from the very initial brand awareness building through to the perception evolution, to the engagement, to the eventual discussion and customer acquisition, up till the feedback and success realization. Now, that in itself can be a 12-month process. You can, of course, tweak it down to 6 months, but you have to go through things step by step to make sure that people are, number one, aware of AI as a benefit to the particular challenge they're solving. They are aware of your company. They have a positive association with your company, which is a classic marketing technique. And then they're able to actually have avenues to come and have that discussion with you, plus have real-time examples of people who have tried and have succeeded in a really great way.
So in a way, you are benefiting from the ecosystem of AI solutions that already exist.
Well, in our go-to-market, absolutely. And as AI company, it wouldn't be a very role model if we ourselves didn't believe in the value AI can bring in sales and marketing. So yes, and it has worked wonders. Wonder what I have also noticed is, so I had to overhaul our entire tech stack very recently by throwing away some really big names that we had, just because they just weren't doing what we wanted them to do, or they were creating impediments to other software that could help us in other ways. So going back to my point, what I mentioned in terms of finding solutions that fit in like a jigsaw puzzle, this is something that I actually implemented, that we did over here, and did it to great effect. So yes, and that's helped us engage with far more people than we would have otherwise.
Your company, right now, it probably has the resource to have a chief marketing and sales officer, and have a little bit of team and all of that. So what are the biggest mistakes they make, and how do they avoid making it?
I was in an entrepreneurial panel at a conference a couple of days back, and there were a lot of entrepreneurs out there with similar reservations and concerns that you just mentioned quite accurately. I think it boils down to a set of factors. Number one, when you are in a space like AI and trying to build something, you have to make sure that you are solving an actual use case, that there is really value to be had in the market out there. And secondly, you need testing grounds, which means you need champions, at least one company or one source of data set that can let you experiment and evolve your technology further. You have to, even if you have a technical background, always be open to feedback continuously. Our company has been in place for several years, and we are still evolving our solution as and when we talk to new clients and new problems come up or new ideas come up. And that's will always be an ongoing curve. From a technical standpoint, of course, people may generally be hesitant in active marketing or sales. What they need, therefore, is a good coach as well, an advisor which has a varied background to guide you in that respect. And a very important thing to make sure that they don't mistake at this point is to have advisors who can bring in knowledge and expertise, not just of decades of experience that they have previously, but also what's going on right now, which means many companies should actually have board advisors that consist of people who are younger and not necessarily with 40 years of experience. And a classic example that I can give you over there is one of our clients, a big global firm. is currently implementing the famous SaaS solution selling methodology in their company, and they're investing so much in trying to get people to start following that process to make sure their sales is effective. When they plugged in our AI solution, our SalesChoice's AI solution, we found that none of the task methodology questions were actually showing up as being significant or relevant to them closing the deal. And without taking into account any of those fields, the AI was still able to predict opportunities, closing, and being won or lost with 100% accuracy. And it became kind of a life lesson for me at that point, because I just realized that here's a method that people have been following for so many years now. And suddenly in this one situation, it turns out that it may not be needed at all. Now, what that means is not that TAS is not a good enough method. It's an extremely useful method. What that means is that you have to be open to newer ways of arriving at solutions, to accommodating that. And AI entrepreneurs need to keep that in mind more than anyone else.
Where do you think the adoption of AI is being stopped or a little bit slowed down when it comes to consumers and companies alike?
So it's of course moving quicker in case of consumers than in case of corporations. End consumers, individual consumers, you don't have to go through as much of red tape and processes or complexity in getting them to use AI and use AI successfully as you have to in case of companies. What is slowing AI down? First of all, it's a good thing that AI adoption is slowing down, and we are, I think, partially coming out of that phase now. One of the key points here being a recent estimate by, I think, was it IBM? I'm forgetting the data source, but it mentioned that AI, the use of AI in CRM alone, is expected to increase global revenues by 1.1 trillion by 2025. Now, that's a mind-boggling number. I think this year and the year coming next, given this trend, I expect people to start thinking deeper about more advanced AI. It's a discussion that we're actually having with a CEO-only conference next month that we're organizing. And what we find is what really impedes AI adoption is a lack of understanding clearly on how AI can be used and what it can do for companies. For that, you need the leadership to be ready more than anything else.
Do you think that there is something about what is known out there in the public that is affecting the decision making?
Absolutely, yes. Educational component is probably number one reason out there that AI is currently slow in its adoption. If I asked executives today in companies on what the difference is between AI and machine learning and deep learning, most people would not be able to explain it clearly. On the consumer side, it has to do more with the dystopian point of view of robots taking over us and starting to control us, things that are fairly normal with any new technology that come out. The second thing that's slowing things down is a lack of valid data. It's important for the data to be in place, as we discussed earlier, and many companies are struggling with that because suddenly they have to bring in best practices to make sure that people fill in the data properly and keep everything up to date. The third one is quite simply strategic, value that is weaved around it. Companies and leadership may have started to realize and bring into their strategy that they are going to use AI, but they don't know where to use AI. They don't know how to go about this as of now. And in most cases, it's not top of mind in terms of their strategy and budget planning. And that's really what's impeding it on the side of companies.
So that's very interesting. I think there will be a lot more questions to ask, but our time is coming to an end today. And Malay, I wanted to thank you. I want to thank our audience as well. It's an honor and privilege to have you here today. If you have additional questions about this particular interview, please comment below. If you have suggestions about similar or other topics you'd like us to cover, please comment below. And for the time being, Malay, thank you so much